we were having a bit of a laugh at Iceland's expense, saying, hey, it's crazy how there's all this technology available. However, they were still going for, let's report our local thief for £1 a reward. So we're a bit puzzled about that. And then this week, it turns out that Sainsbury's is actually going to trial facial recognition to help tackle its theft problem. So it's almost like Sainsbury said, hold my drink, hold on, podcast, because we're about to show you how it's done. And this is today's headline. So Sainsbury's to trial facial recognition to catch shoplifters. Sainsbury's is planning to introduce facial recognition technology across supermarkets to identify the shoplifters. So what they're going to do is, so they've started an 8-week trial in 2 stores, one in London and one in Bath. And, they're saying, look, the retail sector is at a crossroads, facing rising abuse, antisocial behavior and violence. Chief Executive Simon Roberts says, we must put safety first. And the other day I was poking fun a little bit about this whole idea of people reporting the theft for £1, especially in Iceland stores, and saying, look, ultimately, is it worth people risking their lives or putting themselves in danger's way to help report these thieves? And funny enough, not funny enough, but last week, straight after that episode, I actually got to see a first-hand account of a security guard who I actually have a good rapport with, my local security guard at Tesco's. And I saw just how much abuse he had to handle when he was trying to stop what seemed to be someone who had a drug problem from stealing at a store. So at my local Tesco's, they seem to wait 10, 15 minutes before closing time. And they go in there and they take lots of stuff, and they just know that it's super inconvenient to do that at the very end, and they know they can get away with it. And just seeing the guy having to be shouted at, and he tried to reprimand the person, but there's obviously so much that person can do. It just made me realize that, look, regardless of whether these supermarkets are making lots of profits and can absorb the costs, all of that type of stuff, put that aside, there is genuinely a safety risk for staff, and it's not just the physical impact, it's the emotional impact too. So, I like to really readdress these things, especially when I think, look, maybe I shouldn't have taken such a comical angle at the Iceland problem. But yeah, looking at this, Sainsbury's got 1,400 stores. They're doing an 8-week trial at 2 locations, and then they're going to roll it out. So they're actually partnering with a company called Facewatch. So this is the first time I've ever come across Facewatch. So they've already been rolled out in Budgen, Sports Direct, and Costco. And actually, doing a bit more research, they actually did have a collaboration with Iceland as well. So funny enough, this technology has been adopted for quite a few years. And I'm going to go a little bit more into Facewatch. But yeah, MPs and a lot of people are not really happy with the fact that facial recognition is being used in markets. I think a lot of it has to do with sentiments around kind of being a surveillance state, right? It just seems like technology and all these use cases are taking us towards this finale where our passports are going to be digital. We're going to have digital IDs. All of our expenditures are being tracked. Everything we sell is being tracked. We're going cashless. And now, even in our supermarkets, we're going to have facial recognition. It's only like we're a few steps away from a social scoring system, which is really what the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, is actually rolling out. So there's this big sentiment that no matter how hard we try, we seem to be going towards the same direction as other political states that we've been criticizing a long time, like China. So naturally, there's been some resistance around that. But just pivoting a little bit into actually the company that's doing this. So this is Facewatch, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I think if it was a public company, I might even put a few bob behind it, because this needs only going to grow, and it seems like no matter how hard anyone lobbies against this, it seems to be the natural direction that we're going to have to take as a country, especially with such a dense populated country as we are, and with so many social challenges. So here I'm going to actually share a case study from Facewatch, and it's interesting because it starts off with a very heartwarming story that really brings home this idea of why such a technology should be implemented and why we need to clamp down even more on theft. And also just the impact of theft being beyond just robbing for money. It's not just the physical attacks, it's just the emotional scars that can be left from such an experience.
The point, we're here to make money for our charity. When you look back at it, what you weren't prepared for was what happened.
This is a case study of a charity, and it's straight away you're being impacted because you're like, wait, hold on a second. You mean Facewatch is needed for a charity? People are actually going in there and shoplifting to the point where such an adoption of this technology is warranted. Yeah, exactly. So
you look back at it, what you weren't prepared for was what happened. This woman that came in, I can't tell you exactly what she was saying, but she, there was a lot of expletives. I knew exactly what she wanted. She was trying to bait me to be aggressive towards her. She decided to escalate. She said, sorry.
I mean, it's not enough that you're robbing. It's not enough that you're going to get away with it. On top of that, you must give abuse to the person who's actually trying to resist it when it's their job. It's just despicable. And it goes back to that point we were talking about, that debate in LBC where people that, they were branding thieves scumbags, and there was a lady that called in and said, oh, you can't call them scumbags, da, 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 da. You're going to feel that way if you're a victim of theft, especially if you're physically abused. And just seeing this, it just evokes that emotion, doesn't it? So this is Nick Fisher, is the CEO of Facewatch. He seems like, just looking at a few of his videos, he's been in the security space for a long time. And they actually position Facewatch technology as something that's embedded in CCTV systems, and it costs as much as traditional CCTV systems. So they're actually looking to displace your traditional CCTV units with this technology. So it seems like, for anyone who's any business that's experiencing such a high level of theft, it would be almost a no-brainer to switch over to this service. This CEO, like many CEOs, they're good salesmen. They know how to, tweak at your heartstrings, and him in particular, he seems to really embrace that philosophy of security, especially in the way he speaks. Have a listen at this.
A level of abuse that no human should ever have to tolerate. Facewatch can really protect employees and prevent and deter crime. We install a camera, the camera screens every face. It turns the image into a biometric template, sends the template to the database of known offenders. It will either send you a proactive alert to say this is a known offender and here's a match, or it will delete the biometric data.
It will delete the biometric data. Probably nonsense. Look, it's just my opinion. This is not. So many companies are saying that they delete the data of their customers, and after they're hacked or for whatever reason, we didn't delete it. We just meant we weren't going to use it. Seems to always stay stored somewhere. It's very rare for companies to permanently delete their data. And I don't know. I call a bit of BS on this. I don't imagine them picking all of this data on facial recognition, on analyzing customer behavior. There's all sorts of interesting data that could be so valuable to this company for them to just delete it just because the person's not a thief. I mean, there are companies with integrity, but that's the first crack that I identify. It's how do we guarantee that when we walk into a store with a company like this, like Facewatch, that they're not going to harvest that data to at least do some meta-analysis. There's just so many different products and so many different insights that they can commercialize. Why would they delete the data? Yeah, it's that element of trust already. That's the first crack. And I can imagine that's why MPs and many people are trying to lobby against this.
And just hold the file as a typical CCTV image. Here I am at the Fertility Foundation at Waltham Cross, and this morning I'm not the chief exec of Facewatch. I'm actually going to be a criminal. I'm a first-time offender, so I'm not on any watch list. I like these purses, so I'm going to take these, and what Tone's going to do is now going to put me on the watch list. So here I am, 2 weeks later.
So the first theft isn't addressed. Now, the minute you do become a thief, or they've got evidence that you're a thief, you're now officially on the watch list, right? That's the concept.
In full disguise, back in store, but I could be in any store with the Facewatch system. So let's see if it detects me. There it is. It's been alerted.
Right, so if you've stolen in one shop, now you're flagged up anywhere else that Facewatch's presence. So again, going back to that, the fact that they're in Costco, in Sports Directs, and in Budgeons, you now still in Sainsbury's, and the other three, you've got problems. The other three different stores, you've got problems now. Interesting.
So Tony and his team can deal with me.
I've always wanted to make sure my staff, my volunteers, and my customers are protected in my shop.
So we know the use case. I'm going to stop sharing that now. We know the use case. We know roughly what the mechanics behind it are. Now, on the face of it, no pun intended, it seems like a no-brainer. Okay, it's just to help stores flag up thieves and to be able to at least preempt the danger of A, theft, and B, that something's going to be problematic, and they can share that information with the police as well. But I was looking a bit more into how this can go wrong, and I found this article in biometric.com. So biometric.com, literally only just come across it today, where it talks about all sorts of things like digital ID, etc., etc. And it says Facewatch comes under the public eye again. So this is the June 25th. So they're talking about the rollout in basically the facial recognition software is also going to be implemented in Iceland. So I was poking fun at Iceland's £1 reward scheme, and it turns out that this facial recognition software is also going to be rolled out in Iceland too, as well as Sainsbury. So it doesn't stop there. But this is where the problem starts. Apparently, what they did was there's a lady called Danielle Horan who was put onto the shoplifter watch list erroneously. So as you saw, they've got a data center where they just tag the person's face, and then that's it. You've been branded a shoplifter. Now, what happens if you're wrongly accused? What happens if, there's a lot of human error. So sometimes it could, or it could be just a genuine mistake. It's happened to me before. Maybe I've not scanned a bag properly, one of these plastic bags for 30p. Or I don't know, you're in La La Land and you scan one tomato instead of two. God knows, right? So you're thinking, okay, that's very trivial, men say it won't happen in that case. Well, let's have a read at this. Haran was escorted from 2 home bargain stores in Manchester based on a false theft report of stealing a toilet paper roll. So when I say, oh yeah, scanning a bag for 30p, no, that wouldn't come up under theft and whatever. No, it was one toilet roll. Facewatch later confirmed that the woman did indeed purchase the item. We acknowledge and understand how distressing this experience must have been, and the retailer has since undertaken additional staff training. So the problem is that Haran, she said that the stores did not share any information or any explanation on why they were kicking her out. And then once again, it's basically ignited these debates around, sounds like social scoring. Let's be honest, it's about an inch away from this idea of social scoring. And problem is, now you're banned from other stores. And literally, it was for the alleged theft of a 39 pence. So another woman, was actually, the same thing happened. And she was on the Facewatch database over the apparent theft of a 39 pence worth of painkillers from home bargain stores. So imagine that. She hasn't stolen them. And now she's being banned from all these stores. So yeah, you can see how this begins to be a little bit tricky. Now, I guess the real question and the things that we need to look out for is, what is the risk and reward? How often will this happen? If we're gonna, if we go back to the article, the BBC article where we talk about Sainsbury's theft, let's have a look at the figures. So according to this article, in 2025, we've already had about 500,000 recorded offences regarding shoplifting. And that's only recorded. I mean, you can't even count how many offences happen where the security guard goes, oh, they're gone now, can't be bothered. It was only a can of baked beans that they stole or whatever. Forget about it. And it's just written off without doing a police report. So that's just 500 foul already. And if you look at these figures, you say, okay, well, out of that 500 foul, we're going to get 500, 200 false allegations. Is that worth it? Is the risk of having 200 people wrongly accused and branded on this Facewatch database, is that the price that we're willing to pay for reducing those 500 cases of potentially dangerous cases of shop theft? I don't know. But one thing's for sure is we wouldn't care. We don't seem to care. We don't think it's a lot, right, to have that low number of false accusation ratio to actual real cases. But then once it's us, you can imagine if you've been falsely accused and now you're being banned from stores across everywhere, and all you get is an apology. or you know what I mean? No compensation, nothing. Just, oh, I'm so sorry. We'll train our staff better next time. So I don't know, guys. Just wanted to bring this one to your attention, especially because we highlighted it last week. We had a good laugh and we thought, oh, wow, like a lot of these stores are acting like they're in the dinosaur ages. No, it seems like facial recognition is going to be rolled out to most stores, and this Facewatch company is going to be a hot one to look after, to look into in the future, because if this rolls out successfully, not only are going to be sitting on some amazing data, they're going to have some of the biggest customers in the world, especially if they're displacing traditional CCTV. All right, well, let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm right to be a little bit concerned. Are you concerned? Or is this just the inevitable happening and we've got to just stomach it and live with it? Drop a comment, drop a like, or tell me if I'm talking absolute BS, and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.